For a while now, I had been saying that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is the MCU's last chance at restoring interest in the universe. The last couple entries in the MCU have been pretty disappointing to say the least. Although I understand that this easily could have happened to Guardians 3, I had just imagined that it wouldn't simply because of James Gunn and his directive capabilities. And overall, I'm glad to say that Guardians 3 ended up delivering in every way that you would expect, and honestly, probably more. The film takes the viewers on the big-ass roller coaster of emotions with heartfelt moments that will make you want to tear up, but also the humor in this franchise that's basically become a staple of it. That being said though, the humor didn't hit as hard for me in this movie. While there are certainly some laughs, the overuse of this style of humor in the MCU has made it feel somewhat tired and predictable. And I'm not going to say that I would have preferred more emotional moments over humor, because the film already balances that well mostly. There are some scenes where the jokes really should have stopped, but aside from that, it's generally alright. I guess what I'm trying to get across is that since the MCU's style of humor has become uniform across all of its franchises, it makes the Guardians stand out a little less. It used to be you could only go to the Guardians for this sort of humor, this sort of like space adventure, these sort of crazy environments. But now you can find that sort of humor just about anywhere. And like with the crazy space environments, they've even adopted a little bit of that in Thor. You know, like it's not the Guardians' fault. It's more like since the filmmakers are seeing these trends change, I really wish that they would have changed the Guardians just a little bit with it to make it stand out, to give it back its originality, I guess. Now, speaking on the positives, one of the things that sets Volume 3 apart from 1 and 2 is its focus on Rocket. In the previous movie, we saw just a bit like a glimpse into Rocket's backstory and the things that he was struggling with. This movie goes a lot deeper into his character and his relationship with the other Guardians, as well as his relationship with a few new characters that are in his past. Even the other Guardians are motivated by their love for Rocket and each other. It serves as a massive character arc for the whole group, which is something that isn't seen often. It's also used as a really good bookend for a team that didn't like each other in the slightest when they first met. Of course, the other Guardians are still an important part of the story, with Peter Quill's character arc being my favorite outside of Rocket. With that though, there seems to be a lack of development for just about everyone else.
Ooh, that's kind of small. Yikes.
They kind of seem like they're just along for the ride as opposed to going through any real character arc or experiencing any real character growth. Which may be attributed to the fact that this is, I think, the last in this iteration of the Guardians. Like the other films will probably have different members, a different team, etc. So they kind of use this movie as a send-off.
Are you sure about that?
A send-off which is well-earned and emotional when you actually see it during the movie. I'm not going to spoil what happens to any character, but I will say in vague terms, I was expecting the movie to go one way, and the movie even hints that it might go that way, but then it doesn't, and I'm very glad that it didn't. I think the movie not going the way that I thought it was going to go made it a better product overall. I know that's incredibly general, but when you see it, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. As for the action, it's top of the line, like basically what anybody would expect from a Guardians movie at this point. I will say that there are some action scenes that stand out more than others. Specifically, there's a hallway scene. I don't know what Marvel has like with hallway scenes, but they nail them every time, and this time is no different. It honestly kind of blows the final fight out of the water, if you could even call that a fight. And that's another thing. If you're expecting some kind of large shootout, some large battle at the end of the movie, that doesn't really happen. It's more emotional and situational, and it's handled with a lot more care, which I think was really the correct choice to make here, because everybody has seen the massive shootout, everybody has seen the giant fight. Keeping it personal and emotional was the right call. With that being said though, I absolutely have to talk about the thing that surprised me the most. The performances in this movie were absolutely great, with the standout in my opinion, again, being Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. Don't get me wrong, everybody does a fantastic job, they always have, and this movie is more of the same from basically everyone except Pratt, who has some really emotional moments in the movie that he conveys so believably that it feels like you were watching real people go through traumatic events. People like Rocket and Groot, they're one thing, right? The voice acting is great, but for the most part, CGI can make them look or emote any way that's desired. But Chris Pratt really stole the show, especially in that surgery scene, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Aside from him, I actually quite enjoyed the way that the High Evolutionary is played. I'm not going to embarrass myself or that man by butchering his name, but I found his performance to be the perfect amount of deranged and campy. So, that guy, shout out to you. All in all, I think this movie is exactly what Marvel needed right now to get away from the mediocrity that's been infesting their recent films. This isn't Ant-Man, this isn't Thor, this isn't Doctor Strange, this is actually a reason to go to the movies again. For some reason, they just can't seem to nail it anymore, but thank God they nailed it with this movie. I think I'd give it a solid A. I don't know how I forgot this, but whoever was in charge of the soundtrack and song selection deserves an immediate raise because holy shit. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.